A real or imagined line that marks the edge or limit of something, or the limit of what someone considers to be acceptable behavior. Welcome. Today, my friends, we are going to have a deep dive discussion on setting spiritual boundaries. What are spiritual boundaries? Before you can learn how to set them, you need to know what the hell they are. Spiritual boundaries are your protection. Spiritual boundaries don't just protect one area or aspect of your life, it protects so many. The first area in which a spiritual boundary does protect is yourself. Even as a little baby growing up, I remember my grandma saying about babies when they would look off into space and just laugh and giggle that's the angels of that baby that baby can see and is laughing at and enjoying. And I think about this now, and I think about how babies, when we're young, we have this way of navigating through life, and while we might get hurt sometimes, we just seem to recover a lot faster, or we also seem to avoid a lot of those things where it can make you clench when you're watching a baby just run full force into a kitchen or an area that's dangerous. But it's not just at that baby state in which we receive that protection. Spiritual boundaries also protect you when you're a teen, as an adolescent, a young adult, and very much so into your adulthood and your senior years. Spiritual boundaries also provides a sense of protection to your personal space. So outside of just your physical, your body, yourself, it also extends protection to your auric field. You ever stand online and someone is just standing too close to you and you turn around like, all right, I can literally feel you or smell you. Sometimes that smell is pleasant. You may not mind it so much, but sometimes it isn't. And smells aside, there is something about a person stepping beyond that invisible line, that invisible force field that can be detected by you and can make you go, whoa, or it can make you feel welcome. The welcome could be, for example, with someone who is a lover, someone who's a friend, or maybe a parent. And the strangers, we tend to feel uncomfortable when they cross that invisible boundary line. Spiritual boundaries also protects your money. Celebrities and very wealthy individuals have a lot of what we call superstitions or rituals. And they also have their own special practices in which they do that relates to metaphysical sciences and the occult and the magic and spiritual world. And much of this, I should say, is done to protect their wealth, protect their assets. And this is something that I have personally newly included in my spiritual routine, and I have been seeing the effects of it. I invite you to do the same. Spiritual boundaries don't stop there. They also protect your mentality, because the mind is all and the universe is mental. Having a clear mental space, having good mental health is the most powerful form of health you can have. Because if the mind rules all, the mind can heal the body, the mind can heal your finances, the mind can heal your relationships, and other things as well. So protecting your mentality is very important with spiritual boundaries, as well as your emotionality. Having good, healthy, strong emotional relationships and being able to identify when you don't have them. Because let's face it, not every encounter is going to be an emotionally enriching one. Even those nasty encounters can teach us about how we can extend, bend, or create boundaries that protect our emotions. A spiritual boundary protects your energy level, and your spiritual connection with your angels, your ancestors, your deities, your most high, and your higher self. It allows you to keep consistent good energy flowing around you, so that way you are always sending that positive, good, loving energy back out. And spiritual boundaries also protects your spell work. When you are wishing and praying and dreaming and manifesting, that takes a lot of energetic contribution. So having a boundary around you spiritually helps that energy and that force field to stay in alignment, so that what you are wishing for to create comes through in the most perfect and divine of ways. So by now, you may be wondering just who I am. Well, I am Priestess Ishtah. I am a divine oracle, a shadow work shaman, and the healer for healers. My role in your life is to help you to enhance spiritually, mentally, and emotionally. Let's align when you're ready. Visit me at www.lovenaturally.com/book me. Here's one of my free services that I think may interest you. So when you feel called, give me a call. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about spiritual boundaries. Now, why do you need them? So now you know what a spiritual boundary is and what it actually does, what it protects. Let's discover why you'll need them. So I want you to ponder for a moment. Why do you think you need a spiritual boundary? There really is no wrong answer to this because whatever is your reason for wanting to protect yourself, that is a good reason to have a spiritual boundary. So let's look into some of the reasons that I would like to present to you, which is first, respect. Okay. Having that respect for yourself is most important. When we look in the mirror, do you love the person that you see? And a lot of times when you don't love the person that you see, it's because we have a corroded or corrupted relationship with self-respect. While that in itself is a journey, I want to let you know that fortifying a spiritual boundary helps you to fortify self-respect so that that reflection becomes easier and more welcoming to absorb and to observe. Spiritual boundaries also enhances the respect that you have with the Most High. However your spiritual or religious relationship appears in your life, your respect with that spiritual or religious figure, which is usually the Most High version of God. And those of you who are agnostic and atheists, you're very welcomed here. Thank you for being here and listening this long. However, you have that relationship with the energy that is outside of you, the existential relationship that you have with those energies outside of you, I should say. That helps you, when you have a spiritual boundary, it helps you to fortify that so that you don't become influenced so easily by others, so that others can't tell you what the creator is, who the creator is, and what the creator wants you to do. Do you understand that? This, my friends, when you have a poor, and I need to emphasize this point because it is a very personal one for me. This, my friends, is a very important point to not to be involved in cults. Because when you have a corroded respect with the higher power, you allow others to be able to step in and become your God. Never idolize man. Only idolize the God that is within. Because as within, so without. So let's talk about how we can develop those abilities for spiritual boundaries and setting the tone for having more respect in our lives. Because honestly, setting a spiritual boundary is in itself going to help you to develop your abilities. So what type of abilities do you think that is? Well, first, psychically. When you know how to put up a force field around yourself, your psychic gifts will naturally enhance. You don't have to buy a bunch of oils and do a bunch of rituals and meditation and all those things. No, just fortifying your own protection allows your gifts to build and store without being depleted out from these energetic drains that we have to output into when we interact with the world around us. Spiritual boundaries also helps you to fortify your spiritual relationship. Now, I know, it sounds redundant, and in a way it is, but it helps you to fortify your spiritual practices, your rituals, and how you approach your relationship with the higher and existential or outside powers that be around you. Again, removing the power and ability for others to influence you. Now, that doesn't mean that others cannot educate, cannot guide, teach, train, or coach. That's different. But we do not want you to surrender your power to someone else. Also, your spiritual boundaries helps you to protect your magic. To build those abilities, if you are looking to study from telekinesis to telepathy, having a spiritual boundary will help your magic to grow and enhance, and your power will become stronger over time. I promise you. Another thing that a spiritual boundary does is it helps you to fine tune that inner moral compass. Yeah. You know that inner voice that says, don't do that. And the one that says, you better go and run after it. That one. But how does that inner moral compass affect your relationships? Well, when you have a spiritual boundary around you, and you're so connected and rooted in your own energy, you can identify when something is off in your relationship. Maybe your partner is not feeling well that day. Maybe you have a daughter or a son who had a bad day, and they're not usually the most vocal about it, but something you're able to detect. So fine-tuning that inner moral compass with spiritual boundaries set around yourself, and again, I'm going to show you how to set these boundaries, don't worry, can help you to navigate your relationships more authentically and more emotionally empathetic. So that way you extend more compassion, and what you extend, you receive, allowing you to dive deeper. Because let's face it, what's the point of a relationship if you're not going to be able to have beautiful, strengthened, deep bonds with others? Not every connection needs that, but at least 1, 2, 3, or 4 of the people in your immediate circle, you should be able to extend a deeper connection than just surface level. And having a spiritual boundary can help you to do that. It can also help you with your profession. Oh yeah, you didn't think I was going to say this, did you? It can help you to navigate your business. It can help you to navigate how you want to climb your success ladder for your career. If that means going back to school or getting another certification to further extend your knowledge in your area of expertise or to gain expertise. Maybe it's time for you to switch lanes, or perhaps you need to feel confident to go after that promotion or that new role at that new company altogether. Or maybe it's time you started your own venture. Having a spiritual boundary connects you closer, like I said, to that inner moral compass so you can navigate your real world situations. And if you are that boss already and that CEO, it can help you to understand your team, your staff, see who needs to go, who needs to come in, and what changes you can place to be more effective and efficient in your services. Lastly, and I will say this is my favorite, and in the future, I promise to do a individual segment on how to detect spiritual energy. Doing this has changed my life. Literally has changed my life. I have a signal that I can set in place that tells me when negative energy is around me, when someone is trying to attack me. And also, I have a signal set in place that can tell me yes or no, Johnny on the spot. You don't need cards. You don't need a pendulum. You don't need anything, baby. If you're interested in how to do that, book yourself a consultation call. It is not something I just give out for free. And in the future segment, it will be something that I deliberate in a secured knowledge circle. But having a spiritual boundary is a great way, one of the best ways, I'll say, to detect what evil energy is around you. Now, sometimes you're just walking into an area where maybe there was an argument or evil work was done. There could be something where like a crime has happened. So there was something very painful that happened in the past, a lot of trauma. So there could be residual energy portals that are evil in an area that you can walk through, or you can have people that directly send you evil energy, whether they do it intentionally or they do it unintentionally. Okay. So having that spiritual boundary can help you to detect when that is happening. And what's the once you detect it, right? Because what's the point of detecting it? Okay, incoming negative evil energy. Once you can detect it, you can fortify your boundary and reflect it back. Okay. So we're finally here, and we're going to discuss now the importance of setting a spiritual boundary by going into how you set them. So I'm literally going to show you how to set a spiritual boundary. You ready? So you're going to need something to write with. I recommend a paper, pen, old school, old fashioned. And if not, get something digital like a tablet that you can listen along with and write. Okay. All right. So this activity is called Let's Set Some Boundaries. Step 1, I want you to make a column that has I want you to make a chart that has 3 columns. So you're going to make a chart that has 3 columns. It looks a lot like what you see on the screen here. Please pause the video as you need, as I'm going to progress through to the next step. But again, as you need time, pause the video, okay? So once you make a column or a chart with 3 columns, can't get that right. Once you make your chart with 3 columns, my friends, step 2 is going to require that you write out in the first column as a title, what I value. So again, title column 1 as what I value. This column will eventually represent a list of everything that you value in your life. So you can keep it as general as you like or be as detailed as you like. I value my dog. I value my shoes. I value my assets. I value my furniture. I value my children. I value my husband. I value my job. So this will ultimately, as this list builds and expands, this is going to be the inspiration as to why you have a spiritual boundary. This is your reason for setting spiritual boundaries, so that when you look at this list of what you value, you remember it's going to fortify your discipline to say, I have to protect these things because these are the things that I love and I value. Okay. So this will be your carrot, kind of, sort of, that you dangle in front of you, this list in this column. So step 3 is going to be titled as What I Gain. So in step 3, your second column, title column 2 as What I Gain. So in this second column, What I Gain, identifies the benefactors. So you've already identified in column 1, when you make your list, what it is that you value. Once you identify what you value, in column 2, what you gain helps you to see who all is going to benefit from your protective boundaries. This can be something that expands to more than just yourself. What you gain from your spiritual boundaries are protection around your finances and your legacy. So that way you have something to leave as a grandparent, as a parent, or as the ancestor one day. One day you might be that ancestor that started a business that your greats inherited and was able to build something even more on. So this is really connecting to yourself. And you can also say, well, by protecting my job, I gain more leverage in the professional world or in the career world. So this is really going to be where you can unfold and also brainstorm and think a little bit deeper. Okay, you're going to scratch behind the surface and identify why and what else is gained from that why, that reason why. Step number 4 is going to bring you into a little bit of shadow work, because in step 4, you're going to title column 3 as What I'd Lose. Again, column 3 would be titled as What I'd Lose. This, again, is the shadow work. It's going to reveal why you fear losing having this thing, or why you would fear losing this person, or this job, or this asset. Okay. Now, sometimes these fears, they are rational. Of course, it makes sense that you'd be fearful to lose your spouse or your children. But sometimes these fears are irrational. I fear that I might lose my job. Now, while I don't want to say that's an irrational fear to have, it is one to have that is very validated. But chances are you may be able to find another job to replace it. Okay. So this is not really a place where I should tell you if your fear is rational or irrational. It's not my position to judge. This is where I invite you to do shadow work on yourself and see what your fears are, and if these fears are actually realistic, rational fears, or if you are hanging to certain anxieties around areas in your life that you don't need to do. So this column will be some work for you as well. I want you to know that I am continuously here to support you through your transformation. You can gain personal support with your assignments and other spiritual goals that you have by securing that consultation call that I talked about earlier. Now, let me tell you, this service is unmatched. And if you don't believe me, I dare you, just book a call with me and you will see. You can do that by going to www.lovenaturalee.com/book me. So congratulations, you have made it to your shadow work homework assignment. So don't run off this yet. You're going to love this, all right? So are you ready to expand? Of course you are. Let's go. So your homework, my friend, is to complete your chart. If you need a little bit of help and advisement on the descriptors as to what each chart represents means, you can do one of two things. Again, you can book a consultation call with me one-on-one, and I can help support you with your homework. Or you can just pause the video and go back on the video a little bit further ago and listen to my descriptions of what each column represents again. So complete your chart. Once you're done completing your chart, you're going to write 3 ways in which you can begin creating spiritual boundaries. Now, again, your chart should be entirely done. Each column should have at least 3 to 5. I would really recommend at least 5, but 3 to 5 items listed per column. Again, once you have completed your entire chart with listing at least 3 to 5 items per column, I want you to write down 3 ways on a totally separate sheet of paper. And if you're not using paper, apply this to what you're using, right? Tech-wise. But in a separate area, you are now going to identify 3 ways in which you can create a spiritual boundary. Now, I know you might be a little confused on how you can transition all this information into that. So here are some examples. Some ways in which you can create and or protect your spiritual boundaries is, number 1, communicate them. Once you decide what a spiritual boundary is going to be for yourself, let's say it's personal space, and you no longer like it when individuals call you after 2 a.m. in the morning. It makes you nervous, not unless they're like your children or your spouse or people who have that emergency favorite contact list. So maybe a boundary for you is you turn off your phone, or you no longer read emails, or you no longer accept on-call calls, considering that that's not the requirement in your job role, in your job function. Some people are required to be on call. And sometimes those of you who are salary or not, you'll just do it just for the hell of it. All right, so that can be an example of a boundary. But once you set this boundary, another example, I'm getting this downloaded for someone who needs to take off one day of the week. So maybe on Fridays, you don't cook, you don't do chores, you don't do laundry, you don't pick up behind the kids. That day is for you, whatever day that is. I do recommend that be the day in which you were born. Now, hear me out. If you were born on March the 3rd in 1991, look up what day of the week that day was. Or let's say April the 1st in 1972. Look up that day of the week by Googling or using internet search. And whatever that day falls in the week, that day is considered a very special day to everyone. So I'm born personally on a Friday. So every Friday, I take that day as a personal holiday. It's my off day. And I'm very happy I've started doing that. So once you've created that spiritual boundary, you need to communicate it. Be very verbal about it. Don't assume that people are going to know that all of a sudden you listen to Priestess Ishtah and you're trying to get your life back on track spiritually. So nobody talk to me on Fridays anymore. You hear? You need to be respectful to yourself by being respectful to your relationships and others, and being polite yet firm about affirming what is acceptable and not acceptable with others. Another way for you to conduct and to uphold a spiritual boundary is by performing a monthly, weekly, or daily protection ritual. Now, this protection ritual can vary, and it looks different for everybody. For me, I love to take spiritual baths. For a lot of people, they do as well. But you can also choose to burn incense, Palo Santo, sage. You can also choose to do some form of a prayer or invocation, okay? Whether you recite it yourself or just listen to it by audio. Another example of a spiritual boundary is casting a circle of divine protection around you, visualizing this in your mind. Some people actually extend their hand out using their dominant hand and use their pointer, and they point their hand all the way out down to the ground, and they go around in a circle around themselves as if they are drawing a circle around a very wide one. You don't have to do that. You can if it feels more fortified. You can just visualize yourself to be in a beautiful magical light, a beautiful magic bubble or ice wall, a ring of fire if you really want to put the protection level up, and play with it. You can use a mirror. You can use, there's a lot of different ways for you to envision a protection circle around you. Now, it doesn't stop there. You can also envision a protection circle around your spell work. So if you have an altar or a particular prayer space, and let's say you're working a candles magic spell, you can envision a security protection bubble or a spiritual boundary around that particular spell. And you can also put a spiritual protection around your home. Now, again, this is all through visualization. You can go outside and do it too. But in your mind's eye, imagine a bubble big enough, or whatever you envision, a light, a circle, however, big enough to engulf your entire apartment unit, your entire room, if you just have a room, your car, if you live in your car, or your beautiful big mansion, if you live in a big mansion. Final example that I have for you here is having discipline. This one is hard, okay? Especially for you water signs out there and fellow empaths. It's probably the hardest one. And just think about the movie with Jim Carrey called, what was it? Where he couldn't say no, right? So knowing when, who, and what to say no to. Not everybody deserves your energy. Not everything deserves your attention. So having the ability to decipher what you should contribute your focus towards and what can wait. So, my friends, that concludes today's session. You made it to the end. I am so phenomenally blown away by how marvelous you are. I'm very proud of you. You're doing great work. Do not stop. If you ever feel the need to cry that stuff out and get back on track. You're not alone. We need you. We need your light in this world. So, thank you for bringing it here to my platform. I love you so very much. And make sure that out there in the world, you are making your voice heard. Until next time, Love Naturally is out.